everyone, welcome back. Today we're reading the Amelia Jane stories by Enid Blyton. The first story is called Now Then, Amelia Jane. Amelia Jane, the big naughty doll in the nursery, was doing a bit of sewing. She sat in the corner, her head bent over her work, sewing away. "Aha! So you've decided to sew on that shoe button at last," said the clockwork clown, coming up. "Quite time too. Your shoe's fallen off heaps of times." "You be quiet," said Amelia Jane. "And while you're about it, why not mend that hole in your dress?" said a wooden skittle, hopping up. "Or do you like holes in your dress, Amelia Jane?" "You be quiet too," said Amelia, and jabbed at him with her needle. He hopped away with a chuckle. He was soon back again. "And what about your right stocking?" he said. "It's got a great big hole in the heel. And what about—" Amelia jabbed at him again, so hard that the thimble flew off her finger. It rolled away over the floor into a corner. "Bother you, Skittle," said Amelia Jane in a temper. "Now you go and pick up that thimble and bring it back to me. Why do you tease me like this? I don't like you." "Shan't pick up your thimble," said the Skittle, enjoying himself. "Silly old Amelia Jane." "Stop yelling at one another, and you go and pick up the thimble, Skittle," said the teddy bear crossly. "Can't you see I'm trying to read?" The Skittle didn't dare to disobey the big fat bear. He had once been rude to the bear, and the bear had sat on him for a whole day, and the Skittle hadn't liked that at all. The bear was so heavy. So he picked up the thimble, but he didn't give it back to Amelia Jane. No, he put it on his head for a hat. Then he walked up and down in a very silly way, saying, "Look at my new hat. Oh, do look at my new hat." Everybody looked, of course, and all the toys laughed at the Skittle because he really did look funny in a thimble hat. He took it off and bowed to them and then put it back again. "Will you give me my thimble?" cried Amelia Jane in a rage. "Give it to me at once." "Say please, Amelia," said the bear. "You sound very rude." "I shan't say please," cried Amelia. "And don't you interfere, Skittle. If you don't give me back my thimble at once, I'll chase you and knock you over." "Can't catch me," said the Skittle, who was really being very funny and very annoying. He ran here and there, and he kept taking his thimble hat on and off to Amelia in a very ridiculous way. Well, Amelia Jane wasn't going to let a Skittle be cheeky to her, so up she got. She raced after the Skittle, and he rushed away, but Amelia Jane caught him, and do you know what she did? Instead of taking the thimble off his head, she pushed it so hard that it went right over the poor Skittle's nose, and he couldn't see a thing. Oh, it's so tight, now I can't get it off," yelled the Skittle, trying to force the thimble off his head. Amelia Jane laughed. "That'll teach you to wear my thimble for a hat and be so rude to me," she said. "Help, help," shouted the Skittle. "It's hurting me. Ow, ow, ow." "It really is hurting him," said the bear, getting up. Dear, I shall never finish my book today. Stand still, you silly Skittle. I'll take the thimble off." Well, he tugged and he pulled and he pulled and he tugged, but he couldn't get that thimble off. Then Tom, the toy soldier, came up and had a try, but he couldn't get the thimble off either. Amelia Jane tried, but it wasn't a bit of good. That thimble was jammed so hard on the Skittle's head that it really could not be moved. "You'll have to wear a thimble always," said the bear at last. The Skittle lay down and yelled, "I can't, I don't want to. Take it off, it's tight, I tell you." "We'll simply have to do something," said Tom, "else the Skittle will go on yelling forever, and I don't think I could bear that." Of course, something must be done, and the other Skittles who had popped up looking very worried. "Amelia Jane is very naughty." "There's nothing new," said the bear. "Dear me, do stop yelling, Skittle. You'll wake up the household." Then the bear thought of something. Oh, I've got an idea, he said. What about going to ask the little pixie who lives in the pansy bed if he knows of a spell to help us? A get loose spell, perhaps. A good idea, said Tom. Amelia Jane, go and find the pixie and ask him. What, in the middle of a dark night? Said Amelia Jane. No, thank you. And anyway, I don't like that pixie. Amelia Jane, if you don't go and ask him, we shall take your best ribbon and hide it, said the bear. Oh no, don't do that, said Amelia. It's my party ribbon. All right, you horrid things, I'll go, but I know a very good way of getting the thimble off the skittle. How? Asked the toys. Chop off his head, said Amelia Jane. He has so few brains that he'd never even notice his head was gone. We will take away your best ribbon now, said the bear, as the skittle gave a loud yell of fright. No, I didn't mean it, said Amelia Jane. I'll go this very minute to find the pixie. Well, off she went, climbing out of the window and down to the pansy bed. The little pixie was there, wide awake. Pixie, began Amelia, I want your help. What will you give me for it? Asked the pixie at once. He didn't like Amelia. Nothing, said Amelia. Oh, let go of my foot, you horrid little pixie. I'm taking your shoe for payment, said the pixie, and the other one too. They will fit me nicely. Now it's no good yelling, I've got them. I've got no doubt you've been just as naughty as usual, so it serves you right. Now what do you want my help for? Amelia Jane told him sulkily. The skittle is wearing my thimble jammed down hard on his head. How can we get it off? Make the thimble bigger, of course, said the pixie. Then his head will be too small for it, and it will slip off. But how can we make the thimble bigger? Asked Amelia Jane. Easy, said the pixie. If you heat anything made of metal, it becomes just a tiny bit larger. So heat the thimble, Amelia, and it will slip off the skittle's head. But how can we heat it? Said Amelia, not really believing the pixie. Stand him on his head in hot water, said the pixie. You could have thought of that yourself. Now go away, I want to try on your shoes. Amelia went back to the nursery. The pixie says that if we stand the skittle on his head in hot water, the thimble will get a bit larger and slip off, said Amelia. I don't believe a word of it, said the bear. Well, that's what he said, said Amelia. He didn't tell me anything else, and I had to give him my shoes for that advice. Said Tom. Well, poor old skittle, we'd better try it anyway. Bear, put a little hot water into the basin, will you? Don't put the plug in case it gets too deep. Just let the water run in and out, and we'll pop the skittle in on his head and heat the thimble in the water. Well, the skittle howled and yelled and kicked up a great fuss, but the bear and the toy soldier were very firm with him. They turned him upside down and held him in the hot water so that the heat warmed up the thimble on his head. And will you believe it? The thimble slipped off, just as the pixie had said it would. But alas, it rolled round the basin and disappeared down the plug hole. It was gone. Oh, my thimble, yelled Amelia Jane. But it was gone for good. Nobody ever saw it again. Serves you right, Amelia, said the bear, turning the poor skittle the right way up again. Well, who would have thought the pixie knew a spell like that? Did you know that heat made things just a bit bigger, Clockwork Clown? I never did, said the clown. But the funny thing is that it's true. So if ever a thimble gets stuck on one of your skittles, you'll know what to do. Stand him on his head in hot water and it will slip off. And now Amelia Jane can't bear doing her mending because she hasn't got a thimble and she pricks her finger all the time. Still, as the toys tell her, it's her own fault. The end.